watching the Vision channel, where Habakkuk 2 and 2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so they that see it can take it and run with it. This is the channel where faith and vision collide to bring forth a manifestation. You're watching the Vision channel.
I'd like to say good evening. Thank you for tuning in with your girl on tonight. I have an exciting show for you on tonight. If you know anybody who's dealing with suicide, any type of way, we want you to share this information. Call up your brother, your sister, your neighbors, your co-worker, your church members tonight. You will be blessed by this show on tonight. I'm so excited to have this guest in the room with me on tonight, Michelle Reescano. Thank you. I pronounced her name correct. But I bless God for her coming in, and she's going to share with us on tonight. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a few minutes, because tonight we're going to be talking about suicide awareness and prevention. You all know we have so much suicide that's going on in the world today. We really need to be able to shed some light on it, and she will shed some light on this on tonight. So I'm so glad to have her in the studio with me on tonight. But before we get started, I'm going to give you the number so that you can call in with any questions that you may have for Michelle. Very important. We don't have to know who you are. Just call in with your questions. That number is 281-888-4042. Again, that number is 281-888-4042. Like us, share us. So thank you tonight. Before I turn it over to Michelle, I want to say this. I want to say September is Suicide Prevention Month. A time to raise awareness, break the silence, and remind one another that every life matters. So many people silently battle that we may never see. But conversations like this can shine a light in those dark places. Today, we're going to be opening up our hearts and creating space to talk about the warning signs, the resources, and most importantly, the hope that exists. If you are struggling and you are listening to me, know that you are not alone. Your life has purpose, and your story is not over. Your story is only over when God says it's over. But now it's not over. Tonight's discussion is about breaking stigma, offering support, and speaking life where it feels like there is none. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Reescano. I'm a licensed clinical social work supervisor here in the Pearland area. I'm the owner and operator of Array of Hope LLC Counseling. I am a licensed mental health professional. I provide counseling to individuals, families, groups, really focused on a lot of trauma support, marital counseling, and spiritual counseling. I'm also a mental health advocate and speaker.
So as you see, Michelle wear all the hats, especially when it comes to suicide awareness and prevention. If there's any way she can help you, Michelle, can you give them your address to your Array of Hope LLC? She's right in the Pearland area. So give them your address, your phone number, and everything, Michelle. And we're going to give it out again towards the end of the show so that those of you may be jumping in later so you can get this information, because we all have somebody who's suffering with some type of suicide awareness, some type of mental health issues. It's in all our families. None of us are exempt.
Absolutely. So the address here in Pearland is 3272 Broadway, suite number 9. That's Pearland, Texas 77581. My office is located inside of the J. Shaw building. I also am officed at the Trinity Garden Church of Christ in North Houston. So I provide some counseling in groups, mental health workshops there. Additionally, if you're in the Webster or Clear Lake area, I am the clinical director at a New View Counseling there in Webster, Texas. You can reach me at 713-898-3997, and I can get you directed to the area that's closest to you, whether that is my office here in Pearland, the office, New View Counseling, where I'm the clinical director there in Webster, or my office over at the Trinity Garden Church of Christ in North Houston.
See, it's hope. I told you it's hope. Her center is not called the Array of Hope for nothing. There's hope, and it's hope in God. Michelle, what are some common warning signs that somebody might be struggling with suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, some of the common warning signs are people typically starting to talk about how they are curious about death, talking about the curiosity about death. Like, I wonder what it feels like to die. People starting to give away things. People starting to use drugs and alcohol, those things that are really unusual for them. There's so many different warning signs, such as isolation, where people start to isolate from friends and family. But one of the most challenging signs is that people will start to all of a sudden exhibit or exude this great amount of joy or happiness that is not like them. It's unusual for them. And that's an indication that they may have already made peace with a plan.
So how can friends, family, or teachers recognize when someone is silently suffering? So I want to say this, Michelle, I am a teacher by trade. And the kids that I work with, they have issues. They come in. My school is partnered with this place. And they stay there for up to 90 days, some can a little longer.
Okay.
But they deal with all type of issues. So I'm a certified Christian counselor.
Okay.
So I can deal with them to a certain extent. Of course, they have therapists and stuff on site for them and counselors and stuff. But what can you share or tell us, and the viewing audience is listening, when it comes to friends and families and teachers? How can we recognize? Because I've been where they have self-harmed themselves, right in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, how do you deal with it?
I think number one, I always like to encourage proactive strategies and interventions. And so when we think about what that means, so when we are looking for the signs and symptoms of someone who's already showing suicidal ideation, or they've had some self-harm instances in their past, that's reactive, right? It's after the problem has already occurred. One of the things I like to suggest is that we are proactive. And so we create opportunities for connection. We share plans for crisis, and we give them choices. A lot of times children are pushed, especially at that age. Did you know that suicide is the second leading cause of death in youth ages 10 to 14? So a lot of times just giving them opportunities to connect, sharing a plan for crisis before they're in crisis, and then giving choices. So someone may have their head down. I've worked with juvenile probation for about 12 years with youth at risk, and a lot of them they had mental health diagnoses. And one of the things that I always encouraged is that respect goes a long way.
Yes.
And really, really listening. Because we cannot expect these young children to come to us and bare their souls if they don't feel seen, heard, and valued. So I would say connection for sure, sharing crisis intervention, just like we do with what to do if there's a tornado, right? What do you do if you're feeling this before we're even aware? And then making sure that they have those numbers like 988.
Yes. And that's a number I'm going to also give out as we go a little further into
Okay,
very
yes.
important. What myths about suicide do you think need to be corrected?
Oh my, so many myths that people who die by suicide. So we used to say commit suicide. And that committing is, we're using that same dialogue when we talk about people who commit crimes. So there's this myth that people are weak if they die by suicide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hear it all the time. When
Yes.
somebody dies, you are correct with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That they're weak.
Yes.
We assume that they're selfish.
Yes,
People that
I've
die
heard
by
that.
suicide
Yes.
are so selfish. And one of the ones that is so prominent in spiritual communities is that people who die by suicide are going straight to hell.
Yes.
Straight to hell.
I hear that.
And I think the thing that's important for us to understand is that mental health is disease of the brain.
Yes.
Trauma has caused some chemical imbalances in the brain.
Yes.
And we would never tell someone who has high blood pressure, right, that if they die of stroke or heart attack,
Yes.
they're going straight to hell.
Yes.
We'd
Yes.
never tell someone with diabetes that, hey, you were prone to have diabetes
Yes.
and you ate too many cookies,
Yes.
right? You intended for yourself to go into that
Yes.
diabetic coma. And I think that these myths occur more frequently because people are simply uninformed about mental health.
Absolutely. And we can't stress that enough because I did a show, I think it was back in May, on mental health. Very important. PTSD, mental health, because it's very important. I'm about getting as much information out as it relates to mental health, PTSD, suicide, all this awareness.
Absolutely.
We need to know as much as we could share. That's why I don't have a problem with sharing it on this platform.
Absolutely.
Because we all in need of some kind of help in one way or another. None of us really are exempt because we have our moments.
Absolutely.
So I'm just thanking God you in here sharing this information with us, with my viewing audience, and my listeners. So what are some of the emotions or thought patterns people often face when they're in a dark place?
Nobody loves me. Worthlessness, hopelessness, feeling like they're all alone, feeling like they are not spiritual enough, feeling like they're not good enough. All of those types of things typically lead a person to start to have those thoughts of, it would be so much easier for other people if I were not here. So they feel as if they're a burden to someone else, right? And most people I've worked with so many clients and individuals over the years, the 25 to 30 years that I've been working in mental health services, is that most people don't really want to die. They just want to escape the pain, the trauma, the intrusive thoughts, and they don't know how to manage that. We have people that have valid mental health diagnosis, but they go undiagnosed because they're afraid to go in to see a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist because it's taboo in their culture or in their faith community.
Wow. Oh, you just said a mouthful right there. And that's the truth. Man, how does stigma around mental health affect people seeking help?
They won't, right? People will suffer in silence. And that's why it's so important that we begin to have conversations like this more frequently. That's why it's so important that we begin to normalize mental health challenges. Understanding that 1 in every 4 Americans are impacted by suicide in one way or another. Either they have had an attempt, they have had a suicidal ideation, the own thought, they have created greater risk for themselves by self-harm, they know someone that is having suicidal ideation, they know someone that has attempted, they know someone that is struggling currently. 1 in 4.
My God. My God. If you have any questions for Michelle, please call in with your questions. She'd love to answer it. 281-888-4042. Again, that number is 281-888-4042. Michelle, before I get to this next question, you know, suicide rate is so high among young people.
It is.
Can you, I mean, I'm always hearing, I'm a crash out.
Mm-hmm.
I always hear it with these young.
Absolutely. So again, it's the second highest leading cause of death for those aged 10 through 14. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
10 years
That's
old
young.
to 14. And so when you talked a little bit about being in a room as an educator, being surrounded by students who may be at risk, may be struggling with some mental health challenges, one of the things that we can look for is those who are economically disadvantaged, right? Those youth that are being bullied, those youth that are living in homes, whether it is a one-parent home or two-parent home, where there is very little connectedness. Now, what was ironic to me when I started to work with teens and adolescents, I noticed there was a correlation between the teens that were experiencing suicidal ideation. Although I had many youth that were low income who were struggling with suicidal ideation because they were homeless, hungry, being bullied, felt like outcast. They just didn't have the shoes or the clothes. They didn't have food. They were going to school smelly. Lights were off. So we had that end of the spectrum where I experienced young teens and adolescents that were struggling with suicidal ideation. And then as I began to work with families and parents of middle class and upper middle class youth, I found that those teens were also experiencing suicidal ideation because of the expectations that were placed on them to perform, to become doctors and lawyers, and to have straight A's, and to serve this image.
Yes.
And the image was just too big for them to maintain.
Yes.
And so these young adults, adolescents, and teens were experiencing the same types of suicidal ideation as those that were impoverished.
I think when you talk about the upper class,
Mm-hmm.
it puts a lot of pressure on those teens
Absolutely.
to be something a lot of times they don't want to be. They may not
Absolutely.
want to be a doctor or lawyer. They may want to be something simple. They may want to be a photographer. I'm just, thinking. But because their parents live this prestige life,
Mm-hmm.
you want them to be something. And does that cause suicide a lot of times?
It's the pressure. A lot of times it's the pressure that the expectations placed upon me are just too great. I can never accomplish what people expect of me. And I think it's also important to understand that although these are what we consider environmental factors that contribute to an increased risk for suicidal ideation. It's important for us to also understand that individuals who struggle with drug abuse, alcohol addiction,
Yes.
are at higher risk for
Yes.
suicidal attempts or ideation.
Yes.
Individuals that have other mental health diagnoses, such as depression, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, post-traumatic stress disorder, those living with chronic pain are all at higher risk for being vulnerable to suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts.
Ooh, why do you think it's so difficult for some people to open up about suicidal thoughts?
There's shame associated with it because of that stigma that we talked about. If you're thinking about taking your own life, you must be weak. You're not resilient. You can't handle the pressure, right? And there's a lack of connection. There's so many teens that spend so much time, and adults alike, young adolescents, we have lost that genuine connection. We're spending so much time on screens,
Yes.
on the game. So
Yes.
death is not alarming. When I was a little girl, somebody died. That was alarming to me.
Yes.
Our kids are being desensitized
Yes.
to it. In some areas and schools and cultures, suicide is cool, or it's not that big of a deal. You know, they are being desensitized by all of the games. Death does not really shake teens in today's society as much as it did us at times.
The question I have is, when people say things like that, you're a coward, you're a cop out. To me, it seemed like it pushes them more into the corner to commit suicide instead of using encouraging words to try to convince them out of committing suicide. So I'm sure you've gotten patients, teens, adolescents, adults.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons that I always stress proactive strategies and solutions. Because if we are going to work together to war on this suicide epidemic, because that's exactly what it is, it's going to take all of us,
Yes.
not just a few educators or
I have
teachers.
a question.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yes.
Yes, hello, Sandra. Let's talk to Sandra. We're blessed. Have a great show today. Very interesting. And, great guest, Michelle Reescano. I wanted to ask they buried both of the parents last week. My daughter's first cousin, and they're a young couple in their 20s. Had 3 kids, and he kept telling her for a long time that he was going to kill her. And the family knew, the mother knew, they kept hearing him just keep saying it. She would try to get away from him, and she would always let him come back. And he always kept, when things got rough, I'm going to kill you. And he actually did it. 2 weeks ago, they just buried them last week. And the mother, when it happened, said the mother of the daughter, her daughter, he killed her daughter. She said he finally did it. He finally did it in a very upset way. So, and the only way they knew that something was wrong was a 3-year-old little baby walked outside the apartment, and this was on the north side in some kind of way. They were wondering how this little baby was walking, so they traced everything back to the apartment. three kids in there with their parents. He turned the gun on himself, and they're both dead. Three kids in there walking around. My question is, how do you know when to take a person serious?
Absolutely. Every single time. The very first time. If that comes up in someone's mind, a thought to kill you, that is considered homicidal ideation. And those who are experiencing homicidal ideation typically are also experiencing suicidal ideation, but they want to take you with them. It is a sense of control. I'm going to take you with me, and then I am not going to suffer any consequences. And so that is why it's so important, like we were just talking about, Miss Sandra, that it's going to take all of us, and not just talking to those who are already struggling with suicidal ideation, educating those who are not on the dangers, on the warning signs, on where they can seek help, educating young ladies to take the very first threat serious, educating young men, take the first threat serious, take every threat serious, because no one who has died by suicide ever thought they would really do it. No one who has died by homicide of a domestic partner never thought they would really do it. They wouldn't really do that, would they? Yes, they would. And they're telling you, they're warning you, take every threat serious, every single one.
And I want to jump in there that that question was brought up because I had a cousin, it was last month. She lived here in Houston. Her boyfriend took her life. We still don't know the reason yet. Shot her multi times, took her vehicle. We still don't know why, but didn't take his own life. I don't understand.
Absolutely. You think about those who take the lives of others. Many times those individuals likely are addicted to substances, alcohol, or they're very emotionally dysregulated. A lot of times we don't understand that people who struggle with addiction, many of those have what we call co-occurring disorders. They have a mental health diagnosis, or maybe it is undiagnosed, like schizophrenia or bipolar. And because they've grown up in certain areas or neighborhoods or cultures, I don't want to appear crazy. I'm not taking crazy meds or crazy pills. So they start to self-medicate. They start off with smoking marijuana because, after all, it's from the earth. And then that doesn't quiet the voices in their heads or their minds. And so they need something a little stronger. And they start to take pills, and they start to use cocaine or crack or heroin or alcohol. And before you know it, they're mixing all of these things. Several years ago, when I first started working with those youth on juvenile probations back in 2012, these young individuals had learned that there was a value on psychotropic medications. Psychotropic medications alter the chemicals in your brain. And they found that there was a value, and they would say, "Miss, my mom told me to go down to the psychiatrist, swing my legs up under the desk, and tell him that I was seeing purple polka-dotted elephants that were telling me to harm myself or someone else. And then when I get the pills, I would take them home, and they would sell them and give me half of the money." And so these children were being set up, and they would have to, while they were in detention, take the medication. And so when they came out of detention, they would usually be in placement maybe 30 days, and they would take the medication. But it was a hustle. Because if you're on medication, when you get out, you can get a Social Security check for $668 a month, and then the parents could get the medication and sell them on the streets and make a profit. What they didn't understand is that psychotropic medications are there to help balance chemical imbalances of the brain. And so if you take a medication and there is no imbalance, it causes an imbalance.
Jesus. Michelle, I want to ask this question. You know the incident that happened with the man that grabbed the lady on the train or something? It was on the news the other day, maybe a couple of days ago.
I'm not familiar.
Well, he grabbed her from behind, he stabbed her, sliced her. Oh, he was been dealing with some mental issues on a train or something. They say he was dealing with mental issues, but I just didn't understand. That's a form of suicide. He had to be having some type of suicidal thoughts. If he had been dealing with some mental issues for quite some time, is what they are saying.
So maybe there were suicidal thoughts, maybe they're homicidal. So there's a difference between suicidal and homicidal. So suicidal ideation is someone wanting to harm themselves, right? They're wanting to quiet their brain, their mind. My brain won't shut off. So, and then homicidal, people with mental health challenges can also have homicidal thoughts. So if you take a diagnosis such as schizophrenia, that is, or schizophreniform, these individuals hear voices. They're called auditory hallucinations. They also may see things that are not there. Those are called visual hallucinations. And so they may hear voices saying, kill her, kill her, kill her, kill him, kill him. If you remember years ago, the young lady that was on the news, Andrea Yates, who killed all of her kids, hearing voices, right? She says that the Lord told her she was hearing voices to kill them, to save them, right? Those types of mental health challenges, they hear those auditory voices, and it sounds just as real as you and I speaking. But we know that she was in a faith-based community. Again, there's a lot of shame surrounding faith-based communities. And so it's very possible, I don't know the story, that this man could have been hearing some auditory voices, which would be homicidal ideations to harm someone. It could have been schizophrenia, schizophreniform, someone who is just very angry and emotionally dysregulated.
Jesus. Go ahead. Caller, you have a question? They hung up. Okay. If you had a question, you can call back with your question. Michelle will be glad to answer it. Don't be ashamed. We don't know who you are. But if you need some help and you're reaching out, dial that number back, 281-888-4042. Again, that number is 281-888-4042. Michelle, what can we say or not say that could make a difference when someone share they're struggling?
Definitely not say you shouldn't feel that way.
Jesus.
We definitely don't want to ask them, what's wrong with you?
My God.
Right? We don't want to say, get over it. You talking crazy. That's crazy talk. You need to get that out your mind. You need to focus on the Lord. And they do. But it would, so what we don't understand is someone who's struggling with mental health challenges, right? When we say to them, you need to pray that away, it is like having someone who is in a diabetic coma, wheeling them down to the altar and telling them themselves to pray it away. They're in a coma. This is our mental faculties. There is no clarity of mind. We've lost that sense of emotional regulation. Many times We may become very impulsive, right? It just takes a few seconds before that thought turns into an action, and you can't take it back. You can't take it back.
What resources or hotline should people know about right now? You said that number, but we need to say it again.
Yes, you definitely want to call 988. If you are struggling with mental health crisis, if you're struggling with suicidal ideation, but you do not have a plan, you have not made any attempts, you just need to talk with someone. You need someone that will listen to you. Call 988. If you are in danger, if you are at risk of hurting yourself or someone else in the moment, call 911 so that the emergency personnel can get to you quickly. Make sure that you let them know that I am struggling with thoughts to harm myself. I need help, or thoughts to hurt someone else, so that they can get to you quickly and they can transport you to a local hospital, stabilize you, and then transfer you to maybe a psychiatric hospital so that you can rest and reset and get the help that you need.
How can schools, churches, and communities be more proactive in supporting mental health?
Absolutely. Talking about it, having those talks. I remember as a little girl, every year, couple of times a year, Smokey the Bear would come to the school and they would tell us, if you catch on fire, stop, drop, and roll.
Yes.
And that is stuck into my mind to this day. If you catch on fire, you stop, drop, and roll. Schools do fire drills
Yes.
consistently. We have tornado drills consistently. We have intruder drills now, that people coming in, intruding. We have drills. But we are failing to educate our teens, adolescents on what to do if they are struggling with suicidal ideation, because it is absolutely too late to educate someone who has already died by suicide. So my encouragement, my mission, my journey as a mental health clinician is to partner with those schools, those faith-based communities, and continue to have these talks, spread awareness, advocacy, education, share resources so that the next time someone is experiencing those thoughts, they can say, oh, wait, 1 in 4 people have these thoughts. Oh, I can call this confidential line. Oh, I can go and see a therapist. So we've been doing this. Back in June, I coordinated with the Trinity Gardens Church of Christ a mental health workshop. Well, I spoke and I collaborated with those who are struggling with domestic violence. Those victims of domestic violence and those perpetrators of domestic violence are at higher risk for suicidal ideation. We talked about the mental health diagnoses, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, so that people could stop thinking something's wrong with me, right? So they could understand, oh, this may just be a chemical imbalance, just like my insulin is imbalanced. So we had those conversations. We talked about grief. Those who struggle with complicated grief are also at a higher risk for struggling with suicidal ideation or dying by suicide, especially those that have been in long marriages, right? 30, 40, 50 years. They don't have children, who are connected to them. Those who've lost jobs, who they've been on and they lost a job suddenly, right? So having the conversations, partnering, collaborating, doing more things like this, because September is Suicide Awareness Month, but every single day, people are dying by suicide. Every single day.
Yes. Oh, Jesus. What role do hope, purpose, or faith play in suicidal prevention?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. So I'd like to share with you how I developed the name for my practice, A Ray of Hope. At 12 years old, my father was murdered. My father was my everything. He was the only person that I felt like loved me, saw me for me, understood me. Remember, I talked a little bit about prevention earlier, that people want to be connected. They want to feel seen, heard, valued. That is what my father did for me. And although I was raised in the church, I grew up in a home where my parents were unequally yoked. My mother was a devout Christian. My father was not. But I knew that my father loved me. I always questioned whether or not my mother did and the church people. The love wasn't there. It was always fear, fear, fear. But I didn't ever learn too much about God's grace and his love. So when my father was murdered, I became hopeless. We never talked about it again. It was just like he was here one day and he was gone. And I remember going into the bathroom one day and taking these aspirin, baby aspirin. That's all that we had, you know, back in the day. You didn't have a lot of medication. All I had, and I said, I'm going to stage my suicide because I really desperately needed some attention from my mom, from someone. I just wanted somebody to love me. And I staged my suicide that day, and my brother came in, found me there, and he called my mom. And when he called my mom, he said,
Hold on, Michelle. I want
yes.
to hear the rest of this.
Okay, we'll go back to it.
Hey, I had am I talking to someone?
Yes,
Yes, we're
waiting
here.
on your question.
Okay, yes, I had a question. I'm kind of chiming in a little late, but I definitely think this is an amazing topic that you raised to having. It's much needed. I'm a young lady and I see suicide on my timeline on Facebook all the time. The young people are leaving notes crying out for help, and it just seems like it's a trend to do now. It's just the thing to do. And I had a question for people that I had some questions actually. Well, I had one statement. My cousin not too long ago, you guys were talking about like a couple of weeks ago, she was killed, murder suicide by her boyfriend with her kids and everything in that apartment complex and everything. And what do you do with a person that seems like they target those type of individuals that have those thoughts that want to harm themselves? You have the resources that are available, which is spread even through commercials and everything for the people. But they have these one particular, people that they do trust, they confide in, and what if that person is giving them that hotline that you have and those resources, but they're continuously being drained by trying to help and minister to these people? What do you do? What is that person that, what is like the person that they always come to, how does that person handle it without losing hope themselves or get drained from that situation or trying to help someone, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. I think it's really important that we don't take on things that are outside of the scope of what we're able to manage. And so you might say something like, I'm so glad you called me, and I would love to help you, but I don't have the tools. But I will find someone, right? So develop those resources, right? Start to 988. Have you thought about talking to a therapist? Have you thought about talking to a Christian counselor if they are not at risk of harming themselves, immediate danger? But it is important to ask them directly, are you experiencing thoughts of suicide? Express your concern. I'm worried about you. I'm concerned about you, right? That helps them to feel like they're needed. Listen attentively until it starts to wear on you. Because remember earlier I said one of the risk factors is people start to feel like they're a burden. And so starting to share resources is helpful. Let them know that they're not alone. But most importantly, avail yourself to understanding what resources and treatments are out there. Because if someone came to you and they told you that they have stage 4 cancer, you're going to expeditiously refer them to MD Anderson. We're not going to go in there and try to concoct some things to help them. We're going to pray for them. We may go to MD Anderson with them. The same is true for mental health. Yes, they need the connectedness and support, but realizing when what they need is beyond what you can provide is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to someone who's struggling.
Wow. Michelle, can you jump back into what you were talking about? Not just you have this information, but you have experienced suicide
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yes, suicidal ideation. So I really was just struggling for attention. I really needed attention. I was the middle child. I was really close with my dad, always with him, always with his mother and his grandmother, kind of separated in the family. Never felt like I belonged or was connected to my mother's side of the family or the people at the church for that matter. And so I staged my own suicide. I went in and I took 2 or 3 aspirin and I laid them out. I knew my brother would find me because we only had one bathroom. Somebody would find me. And he did. He came in and he screamed, Mama, Shell is laid out. Something's wrong with her. And my mom came in. And I was thinking she's going to pick me up and cradle me. But she didn't. She didn't do that. She went into her room. She got a belt. She came back and she whooped me. And she said, you're always doing something, always seeking for attention. I was. And that moment in that time, it could have broke me. But there was this song. I vowed that I would never go back to church once I was 18 because I had to go to church. I didn't have a choice. And even though I was angry at God and I said, you can't be real, God, if you're going to leave me with somebody like her and take my dad. I vowed never to go to church. But there was a song that they used to sing, A Ray of Hope. And that song, I would sing it in my head. I would sing it in my bed. And that song, A Ray of Hope, brought me hope. It said, a ray of hope will shine. Be for God's mercy kind. When darkness covers the world, a ray of hope unfurls. Sometimes I feel so sad with all the trials I had, seemingly feed the pain, bringing God's love, answering rain. But when the sun won't shine, I try to keep in mind this thought to help me to grow. God always sends a ray of hope. And I said, one day I'm going to open a business to help those who feel lost, rejected, unworthy, so that they will never have to feel that way or be alone again. And God blessed me to do that. With my surrender to him and my faith in him, he blessed me to open a ray of hope. It has meant everything to my walk, to healing from my trauma. It informs me now, my faith, that hope, that purpose, as I sit alongside with all of those that I serve and I help them see their way out of darkness and back into the light.
Oh, God. Glory to God.
He is so good.
Michelle, can you share a story of someone who overcame those thoughts and found a path to healing? Someone you may have had therapy with, you may have counseled with them.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
Found their way back.
Yes, absolutely. So I've worked with so many individuals who have struggled with suicidal ideation. And like I said earlier, I remember one individual in particular. And they always talked about, I wonder what it would be like to be dead. And I'd say, you don't mean that. That was the wrong thing to say, right? That was before I even became a mental health clinician. But they did. And they said, yes, I do. You don't tell me what I mean. I apologize for that. And I would say, well, who would miss you? No one. No one would miss me. No one. No one. And I remember starting to share, right, hope, sharing my story.
Yes.
And they said, you wouldn't understand. Your life is good. You got everything together.
And I don't know why they always think
They assume. That's why sharing where God has delivered us from
Yes.
is so important. So when we share our stories
Yes.
and testimonies of deliverance, that is what ignites hope in other people. But many times we're so ashamed of our stories that we hide it, and we're robbing those people that need the hope. So in sharing my story, I saw their eyes. Like, what? You went through that? And that is what I use with many of the teens and adolescents that I work with, many of the women that I work with that were suicidal because they have been betrayed in their marriage or abused by someone. It's sharing what God had delivered me from, and then seeing them begin to titrate down from the medication, seeing them regain a will to live, seeing the light come back on in their hearts, in their spirits. I have seen it over and over again. Those are the moments I live for.
My God. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. Do you recommend for this Christian counselor or a biblical counselor?
Okay. So when I speak of Christian counseling, those are typically individuals that use the word to minister to the hearts and spirits of those who are in dark places. There are times, though, that individuals are struggling with chemical imbalances that need professional intervention. I, in my practice, provide an integration of mental health and spiritual. So there are times that I have people that come into my practice and they are taking medication that they don't need because their challenges are rooted in spiritual sickness. They're trying to ride the fence. They're feeling ostracized and pushed down in spiritual communities, or they've experienced the loss of someone and they're sad. Well, they're supposed to be sad. And then there are times that people come in for the spiritual aspect, and I recognize those signs and symptoms of a chemical imbalance. And so I integrate the spiritual, not dismiss it because both are needed, and I educate them about the challenges with not managing those chemical imbalances.
This last question, Michelle, I want to ask you, what message of encouragement would you give to someone watching who feels like giving up?
You are here for a purpose. You are fearfully and wonderfully designed. There is someone in this world that is praying for you. You will be the only one that can fill their cup. You were made in the image of the Creator. You are worthy. No matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, no matter how long you've stayed, no matter who you've done what you did with, there is absolutely nothing too dirty that our God cannot make worthy. You are loved. You are needed. You are worthy. You are not alone. If you ask for help, you will receive it.
My God. Oh, my God. Michelle has been a blessing. If I tell you she's been a blessing, just sitting here, just sharing with us for Suicide Awareness Month. I'm telling you, Michelle, some of the kids I deal with, one of them about a year ago did try to take their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to deal with these type of kids.
It is.
Because from the drug use to prostitution to sex trafficking to parents, some of them locked up. I mean,
yes.
It's just something to see it. And
it's the population that I've worked with for years. Love.
And being there because of that, the courts. Yes. You hear.
Yes.
Sometimes it just kind of hurts just to see these young people go through with what they're going through. And the only thing you could do is pray.
Yes.
Which we as teachers can only say so much.
Yes.
And that type of atmosphere.
Yes.
So we have to be cautious of what we say.
Yes.
As it relates to them. But I know me personally, I want to just go in and just minister. But
Yes.
I know I can't do that. So, I may say a little thing here and there because I feel like sometimes that's what they need. That can kind of help and encourage them.
Yes.
So sometimes I just slide little words in.
Yes.
And then if I hear some of them talk about the Lord, oh, yes, you talking my language now. So, it's
Looking in the
it.
eyes.
Yes.
Good morning. I'm glad to see you.
Yes.
There is so much power in that.
Yes.
I am so glad to see you. Just saying that every single day. I've had so many young people say, Miss, I would be dead and gone if you hadn't become my probation officer. Every time I came here, you said you were glad to see me. And Miss, you meant it. And I did.
Yes. And I wanted to share with you, Michelle, this year I started with an affirmation.
Yes.
Before we do anything. I have it on the board and I make up each one of them. You read this affirmation and you tell me, what are you going to do with this affirmation?
Yes, planting those seeds.
And they've been so encouraged by it. And I tell them, some of them been writing it down. I said, you can take it and use it when you leave here.
They're hungry for that nurturing, that compassion, that empathy. They're hungry for it.
Yes. Yes. I want to thank God for Michelle coming in and sharing with us. Michelle, we got to do a part 2.
Let's do it.
We got to do a part 2. If you're available in October, I can call you up and we could do a part 2.
Let's do it.
Because it's so much information. And I'm telling you, I'm all about helping others.
Absolutely. There is a mental health event that's coming up. I'll be speaking at it. It's going to be on October the 4th, starting at 8:30. And it's going to be at the Southeast Church of Christ in Clear Lake. It's for ladies. It's for women. But I will be speaking about mental health. We will have a panel of individuals who are they're living with mental health diagnosis, anxiety, depression, bipolar. They're going to be sharing their stories as to when they were diagnosed, how they knew that it was more than just feeling bad.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so we are going to that day. I'm going to talk a lot more about mental health. That is October the 4th. Starting at 8:30 a.m. If you are registering, if you're not a member there, it is free. Okay. There is a link on Realm. I don't know how to share that with you, but you can call the Southeast Church of Christ or give me a call at 713-898-3997, and I'll make sure you get the link to register.
Give the number again, Michelle.
That number is 713-898-3997.
And I'm going to drop that information, Michelle. If you could send it to me, text it to me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to drop it in there.
Okay.
That information.
Sounds good.
So it'll be in the Vision channel.
Okay.
On my site.
Absolutely.
And also on my personal email, and then I'll share it with my group email.
Okay. I have a flyer with a QR code that I can send to you.
Okay, great. So I want to thank Michelle again for coming in and sharing so much. We are going to do a part 2 to this because it's still more information that needs to be shared. We are trying to help somebody. It can be somebody in our own family that we're trying to help. I have a nephew that I need to help. So I'm just so glad for her just coming in and sharing on tonight. I thank God for her and thank you for being such an important part of this conversation. Those of you, my listening audience and my viewers tonight, suicide is not the end of the story. It's a signal that someone needs love, support, and hope.
Yes.
If you or someone you know is struggling, please remember help is available. Michelle said that you can dial that number 988. It's the Suicide Crisis Hotline for immediate support. You are not alone in this. Your life means far It's far more beyond this moment of what
Yes.
you're dealing with and what you're going through. Let's keep checking on one another, speaking life, and
Yes.
reminding each other that tomorrow needs you.
Yes.
Together, we can be a part of the healing.
Amen.
So I'm going to ask that you tune in next week with your girl. I have an exciting show for you on next week. For the next couple of weeks, the Lord has led me to do a prayer summit because God is saying in this day and time, it's so much going on in the world that we need to pray. You'll be able to call in with your prayer requests. We'll be praying for you when you call in with your prayer requests. We'll be praying for the whole hour. We will be praying on next week. We're going to be praying for those dealing with suicide,
Yes.
those dealing with mental health, PTSD, whatever your need, marriages. We're going to be praying over all these things on next week. I admonish you to tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your coworker, tell your sister, your brother, your mother, your
Yes.
father, your cousin. I don't care who you tell, but tell somebody next week that there's going to be a prayer summit
Yes.
in here on next week. We're going to pray these walls down on
Amen.
next week. We're going to take back everything that the
Yes.
enemy has tried to steal from us, because no weapon that's formed against us shall prosper. And every tongue that rise up against us in judgment, it shall be condemned.
Yes.
In the name of Jesus.
Jesus.
Satan, you have no power over God people. We call those things as not as though they are in the name of Jesus.
Jesus.
Satan, we putting you on notice tonight because we going to pray hell wide open. We busting through these walls on next week with this prayer summit. So tune in with your girl next week. You all have a blessed night. Good night.
Good night.